So COVID was raging in San Francisco. Students and parents and all that were struggling in life and all that. And the school board of the city decided it was more important at that time and at that moment to rename high schools. They wanted to rename, for instance, Abraham Lincoln High School. Had anybody followed this story at all?
I heard about it, but
Not that in particular, but I know what's going on.
Yeah,
Just erasing history to repeat it.
yeah. So, another problem that led to this was the battle over curriculum. These three, and the whole school board in particular, were debating whether or not San Francisco schools should adopt critical race theory as something to teach, and they wanted also to ban books, stock books, mess around with what was in the libraries. Now, Dan Patrick, the lieutenant governor of Texas, who early in the pandemic said that we should just let grandma die. Yeah, that guy. He said that college faculty should be denied tenured or perhaps fired for teaching CRT, critical race theory. So they've forced teachers to adapt and create uncertainty as they try to keep up with fast-changing rules.
I don't think any of those people have any idea what CRT is.
I don't.
CRT is a very specific. It's like if you were to have a very specific focus of political science within international relations, that's like essentially a third subset down. It's like you focus very, very specifically on that, and it's not even a specialty, it's a class. It's like, it's difficult to describe, but critical race theory is not teaching history. Critical race theory is teaching about very specific instances regarding race and politics throughout history. It's not about teaching just what happened during the Civil War and what happened during blank, but what it's being misconstrued as, and what I think a lot of right media is doing very good at mislabeling it, and the left media is not doing a good enough job of actually teaching what CRT is. And it's just creating this fear that if you teach anything regarding race at any point in American history or world history at this point, it's CRT and you're trying to teach white guilt. And that's not what it is at all. CRT is not taught anywhere except for specific college classrooms for specific units and specific instances. And so when they say banned for teaching CRT, and it's like, all right, cool, so you're just going to ban this one specialty of this one area. Now, whether or not you actually agree with teaching the history of what happened is a completely separate issue, but if you're going to do that, you got to call it what it is instead of trying to create this fear factor. I mean, even the guy who came up and coined the term critical race theory admitted publicly that this was a fear factor tactic to try to convince right-wing voters and some middle-of-the-road voters to vote red to stop white guilt, essentially. Like it was manufactured fear around this whole CRT thing, publicly admitted by the guy who coined the term, and everybody's ignoring that. Like at the end of the day, CRT is not teaching racial history. That is not it. So if you think that teaching racial history is CRT, I'd seriously ask that you look it up and do a little bit of your own research on it. Or not your own research, that's a horrible thing to say. But just look up the definitions of it, kind of see where CRT is actually applied, and then go from there. Now, whether or not you agree with what they actually teach in the classrooms is a separate issue, but call it what it is, don't call it CRT.
Okay.
So
I'm
that's
gonna
just,
have to research it further, but is it not true that they were teaching it in like K to 12 and saying pretty much that white people are inherently racist by the age of 5?
I think everyone's inherently racist.
Yeah, no shit. You know?
Everybody.
I'm gonna have to research it more.
Yeah,
like I said.
I would say I can't give you a complete definite answer. I used to be able to, but it's slipping my mind at the moment. But I can factually say that what is taught in regards to the history of race and racial division in America, as far as K through 12, is not CRT. 100% hands down. Now, when you get to college, it may be a little bit different, but even then, the fact of the matter still stands. When you're looking at racial history, when you're studying objective events in the past, that is not critical race theory.
Well, and like
critical race theory is
being labeled as that.
It's being mislabeled. It's misinformation, and it's kind of going back to the speech that I gave. You have to don't take your politician's word for it. Whether or not you agree with that politics, I'm not going to try and change your minds on it. But all I ask is that you guys, if you guys do have a political opinion on this, call it what it is. Like, no, be informed as to what you're talking about. Be informed as to the words that you're using, and that is going to be a way more politically active step. And you never know. Actually knowing that what CRT is could completely change your view on it, and that's really all it is. Like, we're seeing so much hysteria over it, and I don't think a lot of people that talk about it know what it really is.
Yeah, as long as the reality of it, if it is, just the truth of history, I have no problem with that. You know what I mean? Like, the school I went to when I was young taught us, like, the truth of history, not, you know what I mean? There was no blindfolding.
It goes a little bit back to what you were saying before, don't erase history.
Yeah.
I think what a lot of people are seeing right now is they don't want to teach that what white Americans did in the past was bad, which that is erasing history. In the exact same way as never mentioning Southern figures again is erasing history, not teaching CRT is the exact same side of it, or the exact same coin, just the opposite side.
Well, I think if anything, it's pulling the book off the shelf and knocking the dust off. You know what I mean? Because people have been lied to about a lot of shit, and everything's been kind of swept under the rug for decades. And
Now, don't get me started on the libraries thing. Never once has any party that tries to ban books ever been on the right side of history. So,
No.
No, I meant figuratively, not literally. With the
no, I know, but
books,
I'm
yes.
talking with this. Yeah, no, it's
Absolutely.
that just reminded me. It's like,
Yeah.
if you're trying to ban books,
There's a reason. There's a motive.
I think you really need to take a look at the previous groups in history who have tried to ban books.
Yeah,
That's all it takes.
absolutely.
Sorry.
We're out of time.
So, I feel like I talk so much in this class.
It's all right.